and we will try to go live once again on Facebook. If it doesn't work, then we'll just move on. And while we're getting started on Facebook, let me turn it over to you for a minute, Zach, and kind of tell everyone more about you and what you've done over the years.
Okay, absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And because I have to show you a little bit about who I am, I don't want to just tell you. So I am originally from Cookeville, Tennessee, which if you're not familiar with Cookeville, I'm about 2.5 hours away from Lorna, and right between Nashville and Knoxville. I was born and raised here in Cookeville, and I'm a Tennessee Tech grad. Went to Tennessee Tech and got my degree in business and with a specialty in finance. And years later in life, I realized I wish I would have done marketing. But went ahead and got my degree in finance, and I am a father of 5. Got 5 beautiful kiddos. Thankfully, they all pretty much look like their mom. A couple of them, I've got one mini me there, Zane. He's Zachary Wayne Jr. So he is the lone little guy in there in the middle of all those girls. My oldest is in high school. She's a sophomore here at Cookeville High School. And then my youngest started first grade. So those are my 5 kiddos. They all the girls names start with B. And so they get the roll called a lot. And then Zane is a Z. But that's a little bit about me. I've owned the District Creative for about 13 plus years now, about 14 years. Really started out doing graphic design and marketing from that side of the table. And then as my customers grew, I sort of grew with them. And so now I do anything from consulting to web design to graphic design, logo design, hard print, all of that stuff. And I've had the pleasure of having quite a few customers over the years that have become friends. So.
Well, we're so happy to have you with us today. For those watching us live on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us as we talk about branding. We'll be on Facebook Live for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll sign off and continue our conversation with those on the Zoom call. My name is Lorna Peters. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center at Austin Peay State University. And I say we do 3 things well. We listen, we educate, and we connect you to resources. And today we are educating you and talking about branding. Our special guest is Zach Buckner. Did I say it right, Zach?
You did.
All right. And he's going to be talking to us more about that. So Zach, I'd like to turn it over to you.
All right, Lorna, thank you so much. And I just want to say to everybody, it's been such a pleasure getting to team up and work with Lorna. She is the consummate professional. She's just been super incredible to work with. And I'm sure most of you know that if you're tuned into this call. I want to thank her for the work that she and the TSBDC are doing. It's really empowering a lot of small businesses. And I've gotten to see that firsthand from my side of the table, the great work that they're doing. So I just want to say thank you to her. As I told you guys, I started the District Creative about 13, almost 14 years ago. And it started really as the encouragement of a friend. I'm just a small business like so many of you, I'm sure, that are tuning on. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I've actually started about 5 businesses, everything from a coffee company, which was probably my favorite business I've ever started, to a pastry company and kind of everything in between. But I've had the pleasure of being an entrepreneur for quite a few years now, and really have enjoyed what all that entails. And so hopefully I can speak to you from a place of experience, from your side of the table and from the marketing side of the table. So I want to encourage you today, please feel free to chime in. I want this to be a dialogue, and we will open up for questions at the end of my little seminar here. But I'm going to try to cram as much information as I can in a 30-minute time slot here, and wrap up, because your time is important. So we'll go ahead and just dive right in. If you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat portion as well, and we'll see if we can tackle those as we go. So let's just dive right in. First of all, I want to tackle brand fundamentals, and this encompasses lots of different things, but I think that When you think about brand fundamentals, it's what are the go-tos, what are the have-tos of your brand? And so I want to start with that. Can everybody see the screen? Okay. So first off, we're going to start here with brand mission. And you guys can read, and I will have this resource available to you. My email address is going to pop up at the end of this seminar. And I can actually send you a sheet that Lorna and I have collaborated on that will have all of this information in a recap. So you could just email me, and I'd love to connect with each of you individually and send you this information at the end. But brand mission, basically, it is what it sounds like, but I think it's one of those things that if you don't start with the core, your foundation, it's going to be wrong as you build your house. And so it's so important for you to write down your mission statement. And I would even say, don't just write it down and put it where you can see it on a regular basis. If you need to put it on your bathroom mirror, right beside your computer screen, wherever you're going to see your mission every single day for your company, you need to write that down and look at it, and you need to know it. There's a quote out there that says, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. And it's so true when it comes to branding and marketing. If you aim at nothing with your brand, you'll hit it every time. You're just going to be throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. But it's so important that you keep your mission statement out there. You have to know it. But not only do you have to know it, but your team has to know it. If everyone on your team can't articulate your mission, there's no way that you're really going to have effective branding, because you're never really going to speak from the same voice. So you need to know your brand mission. Your team needs to know it, and your customers need to know it. Something I tell folks all the time that I'm consulting is, if I asked your customers what your mission is for your business, could they tell you in a manner of words, or could they get pretty close based on their interactions with you, based on their interactions with your branding, your marketing? Could they tell you what your mission is just by seeing those things? So those are things to keep in mind as far as brand mission goes. The next thing I want to talk about is brand story. And really what this is can people tell the how and the why of what your business journey has been? One of the things I've found of being an entrepreneur for all these years is people are so interested and captivated in why you began your journey at all. Why are you a small business owner? What began in your mind as a seed that made you realize that, hey, you know what, I want to start something new, or I want to expand on something, better a product, whatever it is? What has your journey been, and how can you communicate that to other people? People are really interested in hearing that. You need to kind of pull the curtain back and go behind the scenes of your business and go back to the beginning and tell people why you began what you began. Another thing I want to encourage you to do is to share your story about your brand in a way that encourages other entrepreneurs. I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that can resound with one another, and they've kind of been on the same journey. So this brand story not only allows you to tell who you are, but it encourages other entrepreneurs. And if you guys know, we're all in this thing together. All of us small business owners and entrepreneurs need to stick together. We are one tribe that's trying to get to the same place with different products or services. So make sure that you're sharing that brand journey and sharing your story. So the next thing I want to talk about is brand balance. And so this is really a tricky thing. And when I say brand balance, I'm kind of talking about being professional, but not being stuffy. It's how you're going to show up to the world professionally and personally. And I would venture to say that most people just want you to be a real person. I think some of the most fascinating and, I guess, developmental moments I've ever had with my customers are moments when I've talked about my imperfections and when I have communicated kind of the not so glamorous side of what I do to my customers. And so social media is a great way to do that. As you know, the goal of social media is engagement. And the more real you are, I think the more engaging you are to people. People don't want to see a completely polished version of everything, because why? Do people know that that's not real? Everybody knows that small businesses don't have their stuff together. And these things even come into play when you're talking about reputation management. So if somebody leaves you a bad review, on Google. That's tough, right? It's really hard to overcome those things. And it's really personal because you're a small business owner, you're an entrepreneur. This is your baby. This is your thing that you have created from the ground up. And somebody's left you a 1-star review. What do you do? Well, I think some good advice, and this is really branding yourself, is owning when you make a mistake or responding to those not so great reviews, those not so glamorous sides of your business, and just interacting with people and saying, hey, I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together, but here's where we do nail it professionally. So those are things that I would keep in mind with your brand balance is you really don't want to be too polished. That honestly could be a detriment to you if you come across as fake. People are going to pick up on that. So just be yourself. And we'll go into more what that looks like about being yourself here in a little bit. But your brand needs to look like you and sound like you at all times. The next thing I want to bring up. Yes, absolutely.
Do you mind if I interrupt you for?
Please do. Yes.
What we're going to do now is sign off for Facebook. We just wanted to give you a taste of what we offer here at the Small Business Development Center with experts such as Zach talking about branding. In the comments area, you will see a link to sign up for our services, and you can receive this full Zoom webinar that we just did. So please stay in touch with us. We look forward to hearing from you, and everyone on Facebook will talk to you soon.
All right.
You're good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lauren. So brand values, this is super important. And I think the longer you own your own business and the further you get into your branding and marketing journey, you're going to find out how important this really is to hit this target about your brand values. And so there's another quote I like to share with my customers, and it's, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And that's a pretty deep quote in a lot of ways. It's something that we can apply to our own personal lives in many, many ways. It's also so true for your brand. If you don't determine what your values are, you can kind of be all over the place when it comes to marketing. You can be all over the place when it comes to your messaging and how you communicate what you believe as a business. So I want to encourage you, always stay true to the values of your business, those values that you formed your business on. And then be really clear what you stand for as a business and a brand. I'll share a personal story here. One of the companies that I started originally was called Broast, and it was a coffee roasting company. And I started it as a hobby, and it turned into a business very rapidly. But one of the things that we were passionate about in that company was that we were going to be a fair trade, organic coffee roaster. And so we only used fair trade, organic green coffee that we were roasting. And that was important to us for a few reasons, but the biggest reason was the personal element of it. The coffee trade, the coffee industry is it's a pretty sketchy industry, actually. And there are a lot of inhumane practices, labor practices that happen in the coffee industry a lot. And we did not want to participate with any green coffee supplier that wasn't adhering to human decency laws, or they weren't paying a fair wage to their employees. And so what did that mean for us? That meant that we had to pay a little bit more for our product, actually a lot more than standard. But it also meant that people knew who we were when they were buying coffee from us. They knew what we stood for. And so that was one of the things, that was a brand value for us that we absolutely advertised, and we absolutely wrapped a lot of marketing around us, because we wanted people to know who we were as human beings. And then we also wanted them to know that we stood for good things, and we stood for fair trade, organic practices. So that's just an example. And I'm sure that with each of your businesses, you have something like that, something that if people heard it, they would, you know what, I want to do business with them. I want to, have them perform a service for me because they stand for XYZ. So want to encourage you. It'll be really easy. And for those of you that have been in business for a while, it's sometimes a whole lot easier to not adhere to those brand values. Sometimes maybe it's a lot more profitable, or maybe it's a lot easier and less hoops to jump through sometimes. But I would encourage you strongly to stick to your brand values, because people ultimately respect that from a marketing perspective as well. So any questions thus far? Okie dokie. Keep going with brand boundaries. This is important because so often I find clients who say yes to everything when it comes to marketing or when it comes to branding their business, and they'll kind of see a lot about what other people are doing, and then they'll try a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But it's so important not to just know what you're saying yes to when it comes to branding your business, but you also need to know what you're going to say no to. And so you need to create boundaries that are going to help you learn to say no to something that just flat out doesn't align with your brand. And this is how I describe it to my clients: is set up a fence, run like crazy inside of that fence, but keep a fence around your brand. Your brand needs to constantly look like, sound like, act like you. And you can also kind of think of this as a funnel or a filter. Everything that you need to do from a branding and marketing perspective needs to run through a certain filter. And if it doesn't look like and sound like you, you don't do it. Also, the biggest filter you can run it through is that very first thing we talked about, is your mission. If something you're doing with your branding or your marketing does not fit your mission, do not do it. And it's going to be easy to say yes to lots of things. You're going to have plenty of opportunities to sign up for this, sign up for that, rebrand yourself in this way, stray away from your color palette, whatever. It can be lots of practical things, but just know what your brand boundaries are and stick to them, because you have to look different. You've got to differentiate yourself. And so that means sticking to the things that make you look like you. The next thing that I want to talk about with you is your brand message. And your brand message can be pretty broad or it can be pretty specific, but I want to encourage you to think more about the specifics of what you do. I want to encourage you to think about, what is your one big thing? What's the one big thing that your company or your brand does that sets you apart? What do you do that makes you unique? What do you do that makes you stand out from everybody else in the same field? Maybe your competitors are there doing something similar, but you do it better. What is it that you do better? And that's what I would encourage you to write your brand message around. Especially in the service industry, it's really people related. So in a goods industry, it's products related. It's kind of data driven, and you can say our product is X times more likely to do this, or it lasts X times longer, or whatever. But in the service industry, you're really going to be talking in your brand message about people. You're going to be talking about how great your team is. And so this really inspires people, and it persuades them, motivates them to stick around with you and to hang out with you. I know that my customers who have stuck with me for a long time know that I'm in it for their brand, and they know that I'm going to fight for their brand, and I'm going to provide a great service for them and their brand. So that's my brand message: is I'm going to be here for you. My brand message is I'm with you as a small business owner, and I want your brand to stand out.
Seth, do you mind if I ask a question?
Absolutely, please do.
So I'm going to put Tammy on the spot, who's on the beach out there.
I see that.
Can you unmute yourself, Tammy? I have a question.
That's just wishing.
I know Tammy owns a car detailing business, right? Am I saying Tammy? And
Yeah, Hackett's Auto Detail Spa and RV Rentals LLC now.
Yes, yes. Awesome. So why did this topic attract you today?
Well, I just want to make sure I'm getting the right message out there. I'm still kind of tweaking my Facebooks, the social media. And now we have another page adding the campers on there that we rent. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm not overwhelming with our title, but I've been really, really fierce about sticking to our logo on everything. So now when people see it come up, they know who we are. Mm-hmm. But just trying to get the message out that we're doing multiple things without swaying away from what the brand I need to present, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I don't want too much out there to take away from our name, or, more than just our name.
Yeah, makes sense. Megan, Trina, Diana, Jerry, Brianna, do you have anything to add on reasons why you decided to join today because of the topic?
Yeah, hi, thank you. My name is Darlene. I actually go by Darlene, but Jerry's my given name. Okay, but anyway, I just, the same thing, kind of want to tweak what I have. I feel like sometimes I am all over the place with, the way I'm approaching potential clients and on social media. And I just want to kind of align everything to where it all points to the same thing. And that's, me or us or our company.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? They're quiet. They're listening. I'll let you.
Soaking it all in.
I'm Diana. I actually get on for the topic because I just wanted to learn more and just wanted to see if there's anything I'm missing. I'm, you know, I'm actually trying to do the best I can, but I was like, okay, let me jump on and see if there's anything new or anything that I need to learn.
That's awesome. And what business do you own?
Island Jerk Flavor.
Okay. And I didn't ask you, Diana, what business do you own?
Island Jerk Flavor.
Not Diana, I'm sorry, Jerry. I'm sorry, I heard Darlene, you go by Darlene. What business do you own, Darlene?
It's cleaning with skill.
All right. I'll turn it back over to you, Zach.
Wonderful. Well, it's so great to hear what you all do. And you guys are all on the right track. You're saying the right things about, you want to know, how do I get better, or how do I hone in what I'm doing? I feel like I'm all over the place. And let me just tell you right off the bat, you are not alone. The number one thing I hear from I think every client without fail is, especially in small businesses, is I don't know what to do, so I'm just doing a little bit of everything. And so you guys you're not crazy people. You're feeling what a lot of small business owners are feeling, and they don't really know where to target. So hopefully this is going to help get you laser focused on how to make you look like you and sound like you. And I definitely, my wheels are already spinning just based on what I've heard, from each of the lines of business that you're in. My marketing brain immediately kicks in and I start thinking of ideas for you. So I'd be happy to share or be an ear for you guys offline anytime. You'll have my email address at the end of this, and you guys feel free to ask me anything. You're never bothering me. I love helping small businesses. So Tammy, especially with you, I have a couple of ideas that kicked in immediately because I have a couple of clients that have these multifaceted businesses. And so sometimes the approach is right to brand under one umbrella and then have sort of subsets of your brand. And so,
Right.
I have some ideas for you there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad to circle up offline, and same with anybody on the call. Please don't hesitate to reach out because we're moving quickly here and there's just no way that we can really dive in like we need to. So let's keep rolling with brand language. And this is going to speak exactly to what so many of you just talked about. And this is you sounding like you. This is how you communicate with your customers. It's how you communicate with your suppliers too. Brand language is just how you sound as a brand. And if you think about something, when you think about brand language, think about this, how if you travel around the US, you're going to hear different dialects of the English language, right? You're going to hear people saying the same things in completely different ways. So I like to think that I don't have a Southern accent, but Siri gives me a good old check on that pretty regularly because I use voice to text a lot. And if you read back my voice to text, I definitely have a Southern drawl more than I realize. So, but it's the same way with our brands. Our brands sound a certain way, and they sound a certain way to people, and they sound different from other brands in certain ways. We may be in the same industry as somebody else, but we sound different. So it's important that you are yourself with your brand. If you try to be somebody else with your brand language, eventually you're going to tell on yourself. You can't sustain that. You need to be able to be yourself with your brand and carry that message forward in a laser beam focused way. People need to be able to recognize your brand by what they hear from you what they see from you on social media or your website or Google or whatever else, a phone call, anything. It's got to be a consistent experience, and it's got to be unique. It's got to sound like you and attract customers because you're good at what you're good at. Brand personality is really similar. If you have to take your brand, or if you have to fake your brand or build it out in a certain way that's just not sustainable, people are going to pick up on it. It's so important, as I talked about earlier, to be real with people and make sure your brand certainly is consistent in that regard. It should reflect a positive character, attract an audience that can authentically, I want you to see that word, connect and relate to you. So this, I'm saying you, but I'm also saying if some of you have teammates, I'm sure that some of you are one person operations right now, but as you start to get staff, it is so important to teach your staff your brand personality and your brand voice so that when someone's talking to any of your team members, it sounds like they're talking to you. Very similarly, every brand has keywords. Now, I am going to be doing another seminar on the 31st that dives a lot deeper into this side of branding with your website, with SEO and that type of thing. So we're going to do that on the 31st. So make sure you mark your calendars for that. Lauren has been so gracious to invite me back to spend more time with you on that date. So I'm looking forward to that. But let me just say this, consistency is key in this, and we want to make sure that your Google ranking and your website are as robust as possible. I'm going to blaze through these last few slides because I know that we're running out of time here and we need to wrap up. The second big chunk is brand design. This has to do with all of the things that make you look like you. Very quickly, a mood board is something I would encourage you to do for sure. And this is basically where you physically or digitally create something that you can put eyeballs on that makes you look like you. And eventually this will take form into something you might have heard of called a style guide. And that's basically going to be kind of your brand Bible. This is going to be your brand colors, your brand fonts, your brand imagery, your logo, how you can and cannot use your logo when you're sending this to sign companies, what they are and are not allowed to do, billboard companies, whatever. It's going to make you look like you. And I would encourage you strongly to create that. With your logo design, I would encourage you, I cannot stress enough to keep it clean, keep it simple. Do not include lots of text. Do not include lots of imagery or very detailed imagery. And we can go into a bunch of reasons why that's the case, but simplicity is best. And I'll tell you this, I know I'm biased, but please, if you are not a graphic designer or you've not designed logos, don't trust the overall image that your brand is going to be to just anyone, including yourself. Plus, you own a business, you have a lot more things to worry about. So I would encourage you strongly to please hire a logo designer. Let someone help you because outside eyes are great, and hire somebody who knows what they're doing to help you, because this is your brand image. This shapes who you look like from here on out. So make sure that you hire somebody to help you with that. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg these days, but I would not trust that image that you're going to live with just anyone. Brand fonts, I'll really quickly go through this. Oftentimes you don't need licenses for fonts, so you don't have to stress an extreme amount because lots of fonts are web fonts these days. But if you are purchasing a specific font, you want to make sure that does have a license. Now, if you get somebody that's designing a logo for you, or you have a creative company like us that is doing that, they're going to make sure that you have the proper licensing, and they're not going to use a font that is not licensed if they don't have the proper permissions before they turn it over to you. If you're hiring a good graphic design firm, they're going to kind of just take care of that for you. You don't have to worry about it. But I would encourage you to use those fonts across everything. They need to be in your email template. They need to be in your signature. They need to be on your letterhead, same fonts everywhere. It really just makes you look super consistent in what you do. The next thing is brand colors. When you think of your brand, what colors immediately come to mind? One of my clients is a recycling company. So what color do you think immediately we knew had to be in the logo? Green, right? We knew we wanted green in there, recycling, we're keeping things green. So, maybe you have a company that's a fire extinguisher company. What color comes to mind? Red. Just think of things that people would naturally reflect back to your brand. And then I would encourage you to basically do one pop color, one color that really makes you stand out, and then a few neutrals in your color palette. 4 colors is a great color palette. If you can stick with 2, that's ideal. But 4 is great. 1 pop and 3 neutral is what I would recommend for that. Again, I'll dive deeper into this on the 31st, but the website theme, I would encourage you again, hire somebody who knows what they're doing with your website, because this oftentimes is how people will eliminate your business versus choosing your business. People are kind of in the business of elimination versus choosing when they're looking at you and your competitors. So you want your website to look really nice, and it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. These days, websites don't cost nearly as much as they used to cost to produce. Even if you hire someone, where maybe years ago it would cost $5,000-$10,000 depending on what your business does, now it is definitely not that expensive. So I would encourage you, hire a pro, because I see lots of clients. You can get on Wix and you can use some nice tools that will get you up and going, but you really, really want to make sure that it looks professional, because as your website goes, so goes people's image of you oftentimes. This thing, I'll go pretty quickly with this one, but your workspace is important. People, especially if people are coming into your office. Also, I just realized I spelled a workspace wrong. So attention to detail is important also into that. Again, keeping it real. But you want a space that makes you feel good. It makes you work better. It makes your team work better. And I would encourage you strongly, even if you're a small business and you guys are maybe in a shared office space, or maybe you are in a very small building and you had simple beginnings, please go ahead and integrate some of your brand into that workspace. And so what that means is just simply, maybe you paint one wall your pop color of your brand, or you put your logo on the vinyl, or you hang some picture frames that have your branding in them. Things like that. So make your workspace look like your brand. We're almost done here. Hang in tightly. I'm gonna phrase through these. Brand signature, same kind of thing. Style your email signature. You've probably seen this from companies that you respect and that you've seen the look of. You want to make sure your email signature has the ability to connect with you on social media, and sending regular emails is going to be effective, and you're going to establish trust when you have a nice brand signature with your emails, or as you're interacting with your customers. The last thing I want to cover is quickly your brand assets. And basically just think of this as the hard copy side of your brand. And so this is everything from letterhead to business cards to brochures to posters to banners, all of that stuff. Make sure that your brand assets that are both digital and hard print look like you. And so what does that look like? It looks like website hosting and domain. We talked about this already a little bit. Again, we'll cover this on the 31st some more. One thing that I see consistently with brand new businesses that are getting started is they've got my company at yahoo.com or loading company 123 at gmail.com. And I just want to tell you, from a credibility standpoint, it takes you up so many notches if you'll just go ahead and get a custom domain and a custom URL for your business website that you can get a professional email with. And what I typically do for my customers is we just set up, you don't have to break the bank. You can still use G Suite, but we typically set up a info at and then their domain name. And man, you talk about just really setting yourself up in a credible place. People feel so much more credible about what you're doing if you set up a custom domain. And so make sure that I would work with somebody to get that done. If you're having somebody build your website, they're probably going to suggest that you do that. It's usually less than $100 a year to have a legit email set up. And along with that, again, I mentioned this earlier, keep a separate inbox for special inquiries, create a business email to make sure that you keep track of all your business related messages and that type of thing. Next thing is business cards. A lot of folks think maybe that might be antiquated, but I'm going to tell you right now, business cards are still a valid way of doing business, and they're a valid way of getting your name out there. Attend some social events and start passing out your cards. There's a lot of things I can do offline to suggest best practices for business card design and best practice for choosing paper stock. I mean, things like that are so simple, but they're so important to building your brand. The next thing is brand photography. And with brand photography, and then this next slide, I'll show professional headshots plays into this as well. But I would strongly encourage you to hire a photographer for a few hours. And before you do that, I want to encourage you to know what they're taking photos of and know that you want them to accomplish certain things. So do you want them to get exterior shots of your building? Do you want them to get interior shots? Do you want them to get headshots of your team? Do you want to get product shots? So have those things mapped out, have a shoot list designed before you hire a photographer. But please, I cannot encourage you enough. Have some photos laying around of your business, your operations. Even if you're in the service industry, take pictures of your team, take pictures of you working with one of your clients. These are all things that you can use in your web design. They're things that you can use for Google Ads. You can use these things all over the place, but just know what your shoot list is and have that ready. The last slide here, professional headshots. Again, I kind of mentioned that. This is what people are going to be looking to see if you're a real person. So you want your professional headshots to look like you. If you don't wear a suit and tie to work every day, if you're not wearing super businessy clothes all the time, don't wear that in your headshots. Look like you. The thing I encourage people to do the most is look like you would look when someone encounters you at your business, because they want to not be intimidated. They don't want to walk in and find somebody completely different than they saw online. So look like you, and maybe have those shots done. I would encourage you somewhere at your business is always nice. You can do the old nice, very clean looking professional background thing. But also I'd have some kind of real life shots of what you're doing, because again, on social media, people are looking to interact and they want to see that you are really you. So that's everything I could cram into today. I know we went a little bit long, but I did want to open up the floor for questions.
Wanted to keep it at 30 minutes or less because, like Zach mentioned, we know you're all busy. We just wanted to provide you with some value so that you can return to what you do best, run your business. But do you have any questions for Zach? And of course, you see his information on there. We will send out the presentation and also his information in an email just to follow up for thanking you for joining us today, and a recording of the presentation. But feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions you have.
Hey, Zach, what did you have for me on the brand?
Yes, and
Packets.
we can dive deeper into this too. I'm glad to talk with you over the phone too.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk over the phone, but the first thing I heard was you basically have two pretty distinct business operations, and so I would strongly encourage you to look at carrying those brands in different ways and probably having separate social media set up for both of them. And then doing some different stuff on Google for both of them, because you want to be laser focused in each one of them and your specialties. And so I would think of it as kind of you are the mothership and you have two different brands kind of coming out of that kind of parent company, and then two different parent brands. And then I'll also say this is kind of a totally different discussion, but from an accounting perspective, I would also look at differentiating your brands that way too, because you could maybe have a holding company that fosters both your brands and have some tax advantages from doing that too.
Yeah, we have two separate Facebook pages,
Good.
two separate pages.
Good.
The thing is getting it all under one LLC is why we had to combine the two.
And that's perfectly fine. And so those are kind of the things, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because your customers don't have to know the legalities or the legal side of your business or how it's structured. What they need to know is, and it's almost okay if they know neither of the companies have anything to do with each other, as long as you are being really specific with both of those social media channels, what you're good at with both businesses. Right. Now, you can cross promote, and I would encourage that. And what I would do though is kind of just from your audience's perspective, make it look like you're kind of one entrepreneur supporting another one. So you could share posts from page to page, or give shout outs to one business from the other one's page and that kind of thing. But I wouldn't confuse your customer bases necessarily, because you're really targeting two different groups of people. Now, you can cross market when they're on your property. You can cross market when you have their contact information. But I would encourage you to just totally go with everything we talked about today. Basically, take everything we talked about and do that for each brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. I'm gonna have to jump off.
Great to meet you, Tammy.
Thank you. I'll
Feel
email
free to
you.
email me or call me.
I will. I will. Thank you.
Any other
Absolutely.
questions before we sign off? Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, I think they're great. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, you have Zach's information on the screen and by email. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Gonna stop recording here. It's ready.